There we go. Okay. I have a question that maybe could go on. Mary has asked me anything, or I don't know if it's an appropriate place or even pertinent question, or if I just need a therapist with an emoji. So I'll ask here privately. I'm an INFJ having a terrible time with what's happening in the US and the world right now. First the COVID, the fear, the death, and the horrific stories of people dying alone, suicide of frontline healthcare workers, etc. The isolation and my own personal loss of income while in a lawsuit with my abusive ex-husband, business partner, about our business, which is 100% closed due to COVID anyway, because we are an event service company, and there are no and will not be any events even in the near future. I live alone, so I don't have the 24/7 support of a partner or family that some people have. And I also think I'm a highly sensitive person. I hear you. But now on top of the pandemic, just 1 second. But now on top of the pandemic, this most recent situation is just too much. I'm not a dramatic at all, but reading this makes me feel like a drama queen. But I can be so emotionally sensitive, so I fall apart and just can just break down in tears at any moment, sometimes just thinking about the death of George Floyd, racism, our inept and divisive, unsympathetic president, the rioting and destruction. My city, Denver, has a curfew for the first time in my life, or even in my mom's lifetime. I get stuck in a very raw emotional state and can't concentrate or accomplish anything. And I feel like I'm being dramatic because I'm safe in my home and not afraid for my well-being, just sitting here with my white privilege. But I worry and hurt for the human race and our society in the future. I have no actual contact with any of it, just what I see on TV and social media, which I try not to get too consumed with. I got really stuck in whole days of wave after wave of crying and just feeling so dark and hopeless for humans. It doesn't feel like depression. I don't think I'm depressed. I do try to soothe myself with things like gardening or just sitting quietly in my yard in nature, knitting or listening to music, etc. And now trying to educate myself through this crisis of social justice and how I cannot be part of the problem, but a part of the solution. And it all does help, but some days it's just too raw. My heart just breaks for everything and everyone. And I fear for the future. This is not a cry for help per se, but I imagine there are many other INFXs and or highly sensitive people, or any human being with a heart, I guess, going through something similar. And I wonder if you have any advice from the perspective of Myers-Briggs, inner parenting, inner children, etc. Thanks for listening, and thank you for all that you do. Well, Dominic, thank you for your question, and thank you for messaging us and just checking in to see if this is the appropriate way to do it, and doing it privately so that we can bring this out in this group if it feels that it's the right thing to bring out. And I do feel like it is the right thing to bring out. You know, you're talking about your white privilege, and it's so true. You know, we have a privilege because of the color of our skin. And any person who doesn't, any white person who doesn't acknowledge that is going to be left behind from this train. That's going to, this train is going to go to places. And if you don't acknowledge your own privilege, you'll be left behind, and it's going to be so much harder to catch up with life and being harmonious with other people and growth, and it's just something that holds us back. You know, it stings to acknowledge your privilege initially, because you're not a bad person and you don't feel like that you've done anything wrong, that you're not responsible for what your ancestors did. And that's absolutely true. But as long as we don't actually see that we do have privileges as white people, we cannot address or take down the system of racism. And because we are generally nice people, it can be really difficult to accept that our behavior hurts. Our unintentional behavior hurts other people, but that's exactly what it is. It's unintentional. It's not intentional. But as long as we don't acknowledge the white privilege that we do have, we will continue to unintentionally hurt other people. And now that you're aware of it, it won't be unintentional. It will be intentional. Because you are now aware of the fact that you do have white privilege. Now, I'm not talking to you specifically, Dominic, because obviously you are very aware of your white privilege, and thank you for acknowledging that. That is the first step. There is a lot of material that has been written by people of color to try and explain what their experience is in life. And if you want to proactively start taking down the system of racism or even become anti-racist, then Google for good books written by people of color, talk to people of color about their experiences, but know that it is not the person of color's job to educate you as a white person. It is your job to want to know and to respect that if they don't want to talk about it, that it's too much, then it's completely fine. There are many, many books written about anti-racism. You can start there. I find that the way out of feeling hopeless is to get angry and to say, I will make a change. Because to stay in the hopelessness just continues to allow the systemic racism to be prevalent, to exist, the system to exist. And so a lot of white people are feeling cornered right now, and the fact of the matter is we are cornered. We are cornered right now. And we can either fight it by not acknowledging what's happening, or we can break through that wall and create a whole different world with our brothers and sisters of color, with our brothers and sisters and our friends of the various different minorities, be it orientation, gender identity, but today we're talking about people of color, and this being a question specifically about this demographic. It is completely normal to feel a depressed sense of self and hopelessness for humankind when we are going through these turbulent times. That is completely normal. There's nothing unusual about this, and in order for us to truly find that strength and that anger and harness that anger, we have to feel disempowered. We have to get to a point of feeling so disempowered that we have no other choice than to pick up ourselves from our bootstraps and get going with it. There are always people who try to control others, first by isolating and then bullying. These are just basic bullying tactics of a high school student. When that is in our leadership, it's very disheartening because it normalizes bullying behavior, it normalizes discrimination, it normalizes singling people out and then trying to overpower them. And I'm sorry that you're having to deal with this kind of leadership in your country right now. But know that your country is not the only container for this. You can seek leadership from abroad. You can seek leadership from thought leaders. You can seek leadership from people, from mentors that you look up to. You don't have to accept leadership from a person who doesn't share your values. Yes, you have to stay in that country, but yes, you also, well, you don't technically have to, you can move countries, but if you don't have that option, yes, you have to stay there, but yes, you can also take leadership from somebody else and bring that type of leadership into the country yourself, into your area, into your community. And also remember that you have the power by just voting to change the leadership of your country. Thankfully, that is a fact in most countries. My heart breaks for this too. Has for days now, has for weeks now, has for years now. But our heartbreak is nothing compared to the heartbreak that people of color have had to endure throughout their lifetimes. And that fuels me. That tells me that while I have the right to my emotions, I also have the right to claim my power and do something about this. And I really hope that you find that anger and harness that anger, that power to start rising out of the hopelessness too. If you struggle with this, if you really struggle with this, come and talk to us, send us an email. You were saying you're an INFJ, you're going to have, from the MBTI perspective, this is going to be challenging for you because you can see the perspectives of those people that you haven't shared experiences with. You have high level of empathy as an outer harmony person. Your unifier being in your inner parent position. You're going to want to unify. You're going to want to take away pain. You're going to want to understand and unify people. That's why you're having such a hard time. And your 10-year-old knows this isn't right. He or she or they know this isn't right. What's happening right now isn't right. And that's hurtful. And your 3-year-old outward sensing can see everything that's going on. So on the short term, from an inner parenting perspective, I'd like to challenge you to select the news outlet that you use to get an update on what's been happening, and you do that only once a day, so that for the rest of your day you can focus on making this world better rather than be inundated with what is wrong with it. It's not to deny that things aren't wrong. It's just to make sure that you are looking after yourself, you're doing your self-care so that you can show up as the best version of who you are. So those inner children need a little bit of clarity and boundaries in what we're going to do. And you're not going to do it perfectly. You're going to get drawn into the news cycle, and forgive yourself for it. These are hard times. But something that keeps me going is remembering that as hard as this is for me and as heartbreaking as it is for me, it's nothing compared to what people of color have lived for centuries. It's nothing compared to that. So I'm sad if I get sad, and I'll be sad until I get angry, and when I get angry I harness that anger and I start making changes. And the way that you find out what you should do is ask. Ask people who are directly affected by this, and ask them, what can I do for you right now? What can I do for you today? What can I do for you this week? What can I do for you this month? What can I do for you with the power that I have on my fingertips? Start the dialogue. Ask, how can I stop this system? How can I start breaking down this system? What can I do for you right now? So I hope that answers that question for you, Dominique. Thank you for asking it. If you are a person of color and you feel like I have misrepresented you in any way, please let me know. Please let me know. I want to do better. Knowing I'll never be perfect and I will never understand how it has been for you, but doing my best too. Thank you.